Did you know? When we become Christians, we may not necessarily be completely mature or developed in our relationship with God, but we are also usually extremely zealous and passionate. I mean, look at what just happened in our lives. Why wouldn't we be? But the church as a whole is very quick to remind us not to go too far. Like too far is a bad option or something. Like there is an invisible line that we shouldn't cross. As long as we stay contained like the rest of the church, we will be okay. But never cross that too far line. You don't know how many times I've heard in church, now don't go too far. It was like their motto, their mission statement. I would check the sign outside just to make sure it didn't actually read, "Welcome to such and such church, the church that never goes too far for God." I always thought, what? Don't go too far. Is there a too far? In my opinion, there's not far enough. But too far? It sounds wrong. I want to go too far for God. I want to be out of control for Him. I want to respond to Him with everything within me. I want to be like a wind-up toy that God whines and whines and whines until I'm about to pop, and He sets me down and off I go. Don't go too far? Are you nuts? That doesn't even make any sense. Go to work, but don't work too hard. Love your wife, but don't love her too much. Go to the football game, but don't get too worked up when they score. Are you crazy? We go too far in our lives for everything else. But when it comes to God, suddenly we need to be careful now that we don't go too far, that we don't give too much. I also used to hear in church when a fiery young convert would come to the Lord, the pastors and leaders would say, "Oh well, they'll calm down soon enough," like they were embarrassing to them in the church. Don't worry, we'll make sure they balance out soon, and don't go too far. Like we are all on fire when we get saved, but that's just immature Christianity. We will eventually grow out of it, don't worry. The church will make sure we are lukewarm and half-hearted, just like the rest of them soon enough. Like being on fire for God is a bad thing. We clean them up just enough not to embarrass us or the church. You need balance. Another terrible saying I heard constantly in church. Now, there may be some truth here, but what the church is really saying is just don't go too far with God. Make sure you make enough room for everything else with just the right amount of God. Again, use common sense. I'm not saying just completely ignore everything else but God. I'm saying stop limiting how far we can go for God. Obviously, we shouldn't neglect everything around us in the name of being on fire for God. Sometimes by balance, people mean make sure not to neglect everything else. Yes, of course, there should be absolutely no neglect in our lives in any area, but there should also be no limit as to how far and how out of control we can be for God. We as Christians take and twist these ideas into a warped mindset that keep people from really loving God with everything within them. And honestly, the church usually just doesn't want to deal with someone who's so on fire for God. They make the rest of them look bad. They don't want to work that hard. They just want to coast. Now just settle down a bit and don't go too far. Become just like us, lukewarm, ineffective, and self-contained. Make sure you have balance. Enough of the world, enough entertainment, enough you time, and just the right amount of God. Don't go too far. Are you nuts? This is God, the God of the universe we are talking about. Have you even seen Him? I can't go far enough. I can't give enough. I can't get close enough. I can't love Him enough. Sometimes I feel like I will just explode for God and take off like a rocket and not stop till I reach Him. Don't tell me not to go too far. There is no such thing as too far when it comes to God. When someone says to you, don't go too far for God, yell, get behind me. Well, you get the point. Now don't misunderstand. This doesn't mean that we can just do whatever we want, that we are just out of control, period. Don't tell me what to do. If I want to dance across the stage in the middle of your sermon, I will. I'm free for the Lord. No, this is just simply out of order. Use common sense. I'm talking about everyone together, ablaze. All of us as one, all going too far for God together. Not as individuals, running around, hey, look at me burn. No, look at me burn. We're like children vying for attention. No, we should be taking all the attention off of us and sending it to heaven. We should light up heaven for the world to see. Like a football team, they know whether the crowd is with them or not. God should feel the same. We shouldn't be contained anymore for God. We should be out of control for Him. When worship starts, we aren't so polished, so perfect, but our hearts erupt towards heaven and just can't be restrained. We shoot way past the too far line. When someone asks you about your story, you overflow with passion and zeal. When it comes to God, you don't give any less than you would towards anything else. You go beyond and you give more. You go too far. God deserves a too far people. Stop being so restrained. Break off the limits when it comes to God. Don't be withheld in any way towards God or those around you. Be out of control. Inside you is a crazy, fiery, passionate person. Stop allowing that person to be so contained around God. Let yourself loose for Him. Let the world see your zeal, your passion, your heart for God. Let it shine brighter than anything else.